perspective for cybersecurity is that cybersecurity is no more an isolated function. It's no more an additional function for infrastructure security, right? It's a holistic function and it has to be taken holistically. So right from the technology, the people, the process part, all of these aspects have to be created a balance, an ecosystem which works for all of these together in a very collaborative approach, including the business. Because most of the cybersecurity process are touching the users, the business. So it's very important to lay down a very holistic approach covering every aspect of including your three areas that I would say that. One is to improve the maturity, of course. I want to improve my maturity at a scale of 0 to 5 to at least 3.5 or 8. Right? I have to improve my posture, right? And I have to reduce my cost as well. So three aspects is something that is very important to consider whenever somebody is dealing with cybersecurity as a function, as a strategy. So without a strategy, cybersecurity is nothing. Laying down a strategy is so very important because when you create a strategy, you ensure that you are in sync with the business. Where the direction of the business is going, you align your approach, your objectives to the overall business strategy, right? Because ultimately, you are protecting the business information. You're protecting the assets, right? You're protecting the stakes of the company. You're safeguarding the reputation of the company, right? So breaches are nowhere actually remains there within the boundary of it. It has to be communicated outside the boundary of the organization. So it's very important for anybody who's managing security that these aspects need to be considered. And more business are actually getting matured now. I have seen way back in 5 or 10 years back, the way the board sees cybersecurity as a separate domain altogether, without including under the garb of IT or infrastructure. So I think the function has come forward significantly, visible, and of course, I think you really enjoy being part of cybersecurity domain. I really enjoy that. And I want to continue that association with a very focused domain, right? So when you are into multiple things, you tend to actually deviate from your overall main objective. So that's my current perspective. I would tell you within how it has been dealt, but I would definitely advise because I've been there working with multiple industries I've worked in, and of course I've worked in both as a service provider and as a CISO. So I know what tricks generally is that understanding of the business is so very important for any CISO, right? And at a very technical level, because you have to ultimately lay down the ecosystem according to the nature of the business, the current state of business, and the future roadmap, right? So that these three areas plays a very important role when you actually ultimately present and get the budgets from, right? If you are not aware of the individual business line, what is their current state, what is their revenue stream, right? What is the benefit that they will get out by investing in certain security investment, it's going to be very difficult for you to churn out the budgets. So that level and the timing is very important, right? When you're laying down the budget, it has to be in much early before you finally decide that this is what I need. So usually the budgets are presented by end of this year or December, so that it gets approved by the board by end of the last quarter. So the timing, I think the planning for next year or the next subsequent year should start from September onwards. And that's where you should be able to identify the initiatives that are required, and then you have to evaluate that, how those initiatives would fit into the overall business objectives of the organization, right? And then you have to synergize, of course, because when you are running in a group scenario, you can't do away with one initiative being done for one group entities and another one. You have to do it collaboratively. You have to do it across. Otherwise, there would be too many projects which get created. And you have to create that economy of scale also. That's the greatest advantage when you standardize overall your initiatives, right, across, because you have to standardize. Because if a group entity is accessing your system, right, if it gets impacted, if it's the entire network gets impacted. So it's not that you can do it for one entity, otherwise you leave aside the other entity. So it has to be a holistic or a overall coverage of initiatives across the group entities when you are managing a large group. Standardization is so very important when in terms of security, right? Because it gives you a tremendous amount of economy of scale. You don't have to deal with different technologies, different partners. One single partner managing your technologies consistent across companies would really help in a group scenario. The future of cybersecurity is that, of course, we know that cybersecurity mesh, CSMA or architecture is the need of the hour, because over a period of year there have been many tools and technology being developed in isolation, and now it's time to actually unify all the platforms and technology under a single pane of glass. So that's where the platform comes into picture, right? There's already a SASE journey has already started, right? Where you have one platform, you have CASB, you have CSPM, you have firewall, and other your proxy. In a similar fashion, identity space also, the converged identity concept is coming up now. So I don't need to have a different solution for my access, my MFA, my SSO, or my PAP. So I just need one single pane of glass. I think that itself will reduce the cost impact on the investment that you're doing in cyber. So if you are actually adding new technology, but you should also target reducing certain technology footprints, so that the skills requirement, right? If you have 15 or 20 odd technology, you need people to be trained on 20 odd skilled and experienced also, right? Depending on the model that you define. If you have outsourced it, there's a different altogether context. When you do it in-house, then you know how much challenges that CISOs have towards getting the right resource at the right time, right? Hiring is a tremendous challenge in cyber. So that's how that unified approach is so very important when you're laying down the architecture for cybersecurity. The focus should be to reduce the amount of technologies rather than adding more and more. And because adding technology is very easy, but when you comes to the operations enhancement, optimization, for that you need skilled resources to manage those technologies, which is going to be very challenging. When you talk about priorities, of course, before prioritizing, you should have identified what all you need to achieve for the period of over 12 or 24 months, right? So the first priority is to actually ensure that you have the right service partner who is ultimately going to manage, whether you're doing it in-house or you're doing it with an MSSP, right? That alignment with the partner is so very important, because ultimately you won't get, usually you don't get people in security, right? The outsourcing has already been there with security also, right? Earlier we used to have managed service provider, now we have MSSPs. managing your security risk, right? Earlier it was managed by the safety, MSS. So that the shift has already happened now. You have MSSPs being focused. So alignment and with the MSSP is so very important. The KPIs is something so very. You need to measure where do you stand, right? I know it's a big challenge in getting those KPIs measured and reported, but you need to know that where do you stand currently. Unless you don't know where you are, even though and what the management will think that hey, we have invested this amount to you to invest in these technologies, but how do I know that I'm still protected, right? How do I know? And in a holistic fashion, right? It's not one area. The MSSP cannot shy away from the overall responsibility by just achieving the P1s and P2s and P3s, right? They have to look at holistic fashion. Every services that the MSSP is delivering has to be measured, right? In a combination of KPIs and SLAs. So those KPIs can be used or reused in SLAs as well. So that measurement, and that should be very much aligned with your organization structure that you define. And if you have people there inside, then you have to map the KPIs, their KRAs with the MSSP's KPIs. So that's how you create a chain of performance, so that if the MSSP is not performing, the accountability lies with my team, who is responsible for a specific area. His performance should also get impacted, so that he realizes that, hey, look, it's just not outsourcing is not, I am still accountable. I have to make sure that the MSSP performs what targets that I have set for him, because it will impact my care. It will impact my performance, it will impact my salary raise. So that alignment and with MSSP is so very important. And of course, if you are employing a new technology, give some time for that technology to mature. Then you actually invest and configure that technology within your environment. So this will give you, and of course, the right set of partner technology, how the technology was developed, whether it is inorganic or organic acquisition. So I prefer organic solutions more effective than inorganic acquisitions, because that is something that if it is organic, of course, that has been developed right from scratch by the OEMs, right? So that really has, from the support perspective, there's any changes, then you can turn around the patches, of course, versus you develop it yourself, right? So and then of course your journey will continue. Depends on what is important for you to actually prioritize your investment. You want to actually first, of course, if you are depends on the current architecture that you have, and the zero trust journey, which has already been taken care of, right? So focus on your core basic principles of identity, your access management, your data security is so very important to protect. If you don't have a solution, you need to ensure that the data has to be ultimately protected, right? And that's how you create your entire plan for next year. The futuristic, to focus on the foundational elements. Once you are through with the foundation elements of your architecture, moves towards the competitive elements, which means the other companies are doing what you are not doing. Let's do it first, my peers, so that I am competitive within my industry, and then look for the futuristic new age technologies in the next.